Hi everybody, thank you for joining me today. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Today we are going to be making a rainbow beef stir fry. So this is kind of like a quick and easy stir fry that incorporates frozen vegetables to get in your vegetables. It uses ground beef, which is really nice and because it just cooks so quickly, so it's perfect for those weeknight meals. First things first, whenever we are cooking, what I want you guys to do is wash your hands with warm soap and water for 20 seconds, making sure to have nice clean hands. Always great for food safety to start off with. If you have long hair, put it up, and if you're worried about getting anything on your clothes, feel free to pop on an apron. In addition, other tips that I give all the time when I'm going out to schools, when I'm not doing it digitally, when I'm doing it in person, is I always tell the class and the students to read the recipe in advance. Make sure you read through the recipe and make sure when you start off that you have all the ingredients or a good substitute for some of the ingredients if you don't have everything in advance. Okay, so jumping into the rainbow stir fry, what I want to show you guys a little bit about is flavoring rice. We're going to be serving this over rice today. However, what you can do is you can use other whole grains as well. So what I do have here is I have a whole grain brown rice. So this just has more fiber than white rice. As always, if you're new to cooking, I don't want to go over the top. If you don't like brown rice and you won't eat brown rice, then don't make it with brown rice. Then you can make it with white rice instead. You can still use the exact same flavorings that I am recommending with white rice. The only thing that you'll have to alter is the amount of liquid that you are cooking the rice in, okay? So, and also probably the cooking time as well. So basically, if you are using a different kind of rice, I always recommend, or a different whole grain in general, I recommend that you just follow the directions on the back of the packet to make sure that you have the proper grain to liquid ratio to make sure that it cooks properly, okay? So, because just some other ones, we're going to be using brown rice today to serve this. That's very common with a stir fry, is to serve it over rice. But you can also do quinoa is a great option as well. Farro is a great option as well. There's a whole wheat couscous available. All of these options are great. All have different benefits, but they're whole grains that contribute to a healthy diet. So I'm going to pop this in here. You'll see I have a pot going. So I'm going to put the rice in. That's a cup of rice. And generally, the rule of thumb is that per cup of rice, you will need double the amount of water, but that depends on the type of rice. That's true of long grain rice types. So at the end of the day, if you're not following the recipe directly, as I mentioned before, what I do recommend is that you follow the directions on the back of the packet. The back of the packet will always use water as its liquid, but I do want to go over today that a great way to add flavor to your grain, no matter what grain it is to use broth. So we have some beef broth here that we're going to pour in. It's 2 cups to the 1 cup of brown rice. I'm pouring in. So I do highly recommend using a broth, whether it's vegetable, beef, chicken, any kind of broth is going to be really nice. Adds so much flavor. And some other things that we have here are, I have these are onion flakes. So it's like full dried onions that have then been dehydrated. And then we also have some garlic powder as well. So we'll sprinkle that in. Just adding so much flavor in here because we have the broth. We have some spices. You can do herbs. Also, this recipe calls for an onion to be added in as well. So just wanted to go over cutting some knife skills again as a quick reminder. So remember, I already cut off the ends and made a flat surface which already makes this safer for me to cut. Anytime you're cutting something round, you want to make a flat surface as soon as possible. And you can also see, if you're looking down at my cutting board, that I do have a wet towel underneath. And this just makes it so that the cutting board doesn't slide all over the place, because that's very dangerous as well. Okay, so let's go over some knife technique right now. Okay, so I have right here, I have my very sharp chef's knife. And what I'm gonna do, I'll put you guys up a little bit there. So what you can do is always, you wanna keep your fingers tucked and out of the way, right? So they're never near the blade. You're keeping the tip of the knife on the board, and you're using the heel of the knife to cut. Okay? So that's one way that you can do it safely, is just always keeping your fingers out of the way, right? Because we have the claw going on. And if this makes you nervous at all, something that I do find a lot safer is just a general chopping technique, which is you put your fingers on the tip here, the not sharp part, and you're once again keeping the tip of the knife on the board. You're just using the heel of the knife, and you just run the back of the knife through whatever you're trying to cut. So this is called just general chopping. You can get your onions really small using this technique, but you can also make them coarser. So it's just a really good technique to have. They won't be perfect little squares, but you don't really need them to be perfect little squares. You just need them to be roughly the same size. There we go. And that should be good, because this is something else that I like to do, is just simply put some onion in to my rice dish right here. It's super tasty and just a great way to add in a little bit more flavor. So I'm just gonna give this a quick little stir. Whoo, sorry, I might be crying a little bit because I did just cut an onion. So everything's kind of in there. And I did already make some pre-made rice. So I'll just kind of explain, that's what it's gonna look like in there. So what you do now is you want to bring this to a boil over high heat. And then what you do is you take a lid, and you cover it, you turn it to low heat and let it cook for about 15 minutes. I very specifically used 15-minute brown rice, because typically brown rice takes longer to cook than white rice. So I bought 15-minute brown rice. So I know that I have to put it on for 15 minutes on low heat. And then once it's been on there for low heat, then you move it, then you take it off the heat and you set it aside for 10 minutes. And that allows more to absorb, more of the moisture to be absorbed into the rice. Just gives it a little bit more time. What I normally do is, if I want to add in an extra veggie, I always like to add in an extra veggie into my carbs. If I'm served, because it adds a nice pop of color to the rice. It adds even more flavoring, that kind of thing. So if it's, for example, frozen peas, which don't need a long cooking time at all. So basically after the 15 minutes of low heat is up, I quickly take the lid off and I sprinkle in the peas and I put the lid back on. And what that does is allows it, because it's going to be set aside for 10 minutes, still steaming, and that allows the peas to be cooked just a little bit, so that and then you can mix it in with the rice at the very end. Always, always, always with rice and a lot of grains, they are being cooked through, like the steam needs to build. That is how it is getting cooked. So you need to make sure that you keep the lid on. Don't do this where you are constantly looking into the pot. It helps if you have a clear top so that you can kind of see it. But absolutely do not keep lifting the lid, because then your rice is going to take way longer to cook, okay? And you do want to make sure that it's not crunchy at the end of the day. Okay, so there we go. As mentioned, I did already prepare some rice in advance, so you can see right here. I already mixed the peas in and it's ready to go. So now we can jump right in to the actual part of making the rainbow stir fry. So this is super simple. I love doing this. So I did get a big frying pan here because it's going to be a lot incorporated. And then I put this up to about medium-high heat. And first things first is I'm going to be cooking the ground beef, okay? So this is lean ground beef that I'm working with right here. And I'm just gonna put this in. There we go. And I will basically be breaking this apart with the back of my spoon as it cooks. You can kind of already hear it going. Just a little bit. Put this down over here. Okay, and something that not a lot of people know is that if you are working with any ground meat product, whether it is ground beef or your ground turkey, ground chicken, ground pork, is that if those categories that it has. So when it says extra lean or it says lean, all of these different cuts are actually, they have to meet the same maximum fat requirements. So basically what that means is that if you buy extra lean ground chicken and you buy extra lean ground beef, they both cannot go over a certain amount of fat. So with those labels, you can know that you're in good hands, that you are getting a lean product, no matter what kind of meat it is. And that's kind of looked after by Health Canada to make sure that you are, in fact, getting a similar level of leanness depending on how they categorize it. So it's not up to the meat counters at the grocery store or anything like that. It's actually regulated by Health Canada, just so you know. Okay, so this is kind of heating up a bit. We have it going. It might take a bit longer for this one, just because it's such a big pan on a small burner that I'm working with right here. So I'm going to point you guys down and I'm going to show you guys actually how to make the sauce that's going to go on the stir fry, okay? So I'll bring over my little bowl here and I have my whisk. Woo. So this is a really easy sauce that you can make super quickly. So I've started out here with some garlic powder. There we go. It's adding some flavor. And then I have some soy sauce right here that I'm going to pour in. Going back to the recipe, what it does say is we have half a teaspoon of garlic powder, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 3 tablespoons of honey. Just so you guys know, going back to my previous video, I did oil this very lightly so that the honey should come out a bit easier. And that way just less of the honey will stick into the bottom. 3 tablespoons of honey right there. Came out decently well with the oil. And then we have 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. So cornstarch, just so you know, helps thicken a dish. So it is basically it's similar to, you can also thicken a dish using flour, or you can use cornstarch. These are all things that will help, basically if your sauce is really runny, it'll help make it thicker. So we're putting this right into the sauce to be whisked in. Make sure we get all of that in there. And lastly, we are just going to add in some Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce, try saying that 10 times fast. And just going back to the cornstarch, I did want to talk about that just because it doesn't take that much, but it's a nice way, easy way to thicken things. It'll kind of give your sauce a nice glossy finish. And if you're wondering why I'm mixing it into the sauce right now, instead of just putting it directly hot into the pan, it can actually be very clumpy. So you never want to add cornstarch directly to a hot pan as a solid or to a hot liquid, because then it will just clump up. So you always want to whisk it into something cold before you add it to the dish, okay? So that's why I'm mixing it into the sauce directly. The sauce is cold right now, and I get to whisk it so it won't clump up. See what I mean? It whisks together pretty well. We didn't get a giant clump right in there. And there you have it. So the sauce is ready to go for when it's time to mix that in. We're just cooking up the beef over here, breaking it apart. And when we're cooking with the ground beef, what I'm trying to do is really make sure that there's no pink remaining. If you really do want to be cautious, something else that you can do is use a meat thermometer. And how you would do that is you'd kind of pile up the beef into one corner, and you'd use a meat thermometer to like make sure you're in the middle of the meat, and you want to get to 71 degrees Celsius and done. So 71 and done. That's a good way to remember if your meat is done or not. There we go. Still cooking away. There we go. It smells so good in here already. There we go. Okay, and I'll just give you guys another little peek at it, cooking away. There we go. And just so you guys know, as you're breaking up beef, it really helps the earlier you break it up, the better, is basically what I'm getting at. So you don't want to break it up. You don't want to wait until it's cooked too much to break it up, just because then basically when you cook a protein, it tightens up a bit. So it's better to kind of break it up during the cooking process and earlier in the cooking process, just to make it a little bit easier. Otherwise, you might end up with a little bit of a meatloaf or burger situation, because it does really like to stick together. Okay, so while that's just finishing up, this is one of my favorite parts, just to demonstrate how easy this recipe really is the fact that we're using frozen vegetables. So this is an Asian vegetable mix of frozen veggies, and if you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I'm a huge advocate for buying frozen vegetables and using frozen or canned vegetables. And the reason for that is because using frozen vegetables, they're actually frozen at their peak freshness, which means that if they're at their peak freshness, they're at their highest nutrient value, their peak nutrient value. So it's a great way to preserve vegetables. They're usually at a better price point if they're frozen, all of these things. Plus, just making it easier throughout the week. I didn't have to chop any of these, right? Like, this all came pre-done, pre-sliced, so it's really easy to incorporate. This is 3 cups right here. The beef is almost done, and then we will stir those veggies right in. There we go. Almost done. See a little bit of pink remaining. And as mentioned, you can always use a meat thermometer. So 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 71 degrees Celsius and done. Okay? That's what you are looking for. Okay, so this is ready. Yum, it looks good, it smells good. I'll kind of like, there we go, the beef is cooking along. And now I'm gonna add in my veggies, which will add, this is where the rainbow part of the stir fry comes in. So we're gonna just mix all of those in. And we're just gonna cook it for about 2 minutes until it's just slightly softened. There we go. And we're just going to basically get them to thaw out a little bit while we're cooking them. You can get an idea here. They're already pre-cooked vegetables, so it's really just about thawing them out. And then the last step really is just to add the sauce. But we want the pan to reheat up so that when we put in the sauce, it'll bubble, because that's something that needs to happen for the cornstarch to actually work to thicken the sauce. You need it to bubble up a little bit, at least be at a simmer. And the simmering is actually what cooks the cornstarch so that it thickens the dish. What I really love, so this sauce is really easy. It's a sweet sauce. This is a sweet stir fry. But if you did want to make a savory stir fry, because not everybody likes a sweet stir fry, what you could do is something super simple. You could just do beef broth. You could do, maybe if you have some steak seasoning at home, you could just simply use some steak seasoning. And then the steak seasoning, like I would say maybe about a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, and then use your cornstarch again. And there you have it. You could easily make like a nice little beef and broccoli with a very savory sauce. And the sauce is just so delicious because not only does it coat the meat, the beef here that we have here, it coats the veggies, but it makes a nice sauce that the rice actually will soak up. So it gives the rice even more flavor. What I also really like about this recipe is that it uses a lot of pantry staples. So these are things that specifically the pantry staple rice is a very common pantry staple that you can always have on hand at any time. If you don't want to use rice, you can also, if you have quinoa on hand, farro, any of the whole wheat couscous, regular couscous, you can serve this over any of those options too. But it's nice that you would always have it on hand. In addition, I do consider frozen vegetables to be a staple just because they have a long shelf life once they're in the freezer. Something else that you can do, you can freeze raw ground beef in the freezer and basically pull it out. Make sure you defrost it properly. So there's 3 ways to defrost raw meat if you do freeze it. And that's either you can do it in the microwave. You can do it with, you can defrost it by putting it in the fridge about 2 days in advance just to make sure that it's fully thawed. Or 3, you can defrost it in the sink, making sure that the beef is still, or the ground meat is still completely wrapped and packaged, and you put it under running cool water. And those are 3 ways to safely defrost meat if you do freeze your raw meat. Okay, there we go. So it's not making a huge sizzle, but it's still cooking away. So I'm going to add in our sauce, which we have right here. And I'm just going to pour it in, show you guys. So there we go. There we go. So this burner is taking a little bit longer today just because of the fact that this is such a big pan on such a little burner. So, but hopefully this will come up to a simmer very quickly, and then you guys will be able to see it kind of thickening up. There we go. And I can, right now I am kind of poking at the veggies as I'm cooking them, and I can tell that they are, that they've thawed out and that they are definitely on their way to being warm. So it has definitely worked that way. Okay, and actually what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to put it back here for a minute just because it'll be a lot faster. Onto this one. There we go. There we go. And I can kind of bring you guys over to see it. Because it'll just heat up a lot faster this way. Okay. So I'll bring you guys over because I feel like this sauce will be bubbling very soon. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so I'll bring you over here. You can kind of see already that the sauce is starting to thicken up so that it coats everything a lot better. Our veggies are cooked, no longer frozen. And yeah, you can really get an idea just how nicely this sauce has thickened up. And it's really just that simple. There we go. I'm actually going to take it off the heat and serve it up because it is ready. Okay, there we go. So this is nice and ready to go. So to prepare your plate, you can just do a platter and put the rice on the platter and this on top. Or the other option that you can do, wow, this is like perfectly bubbling now, so I'll just show you guys. So tasty. Okay, so I'm just gonna make my plate now. So I have my rice that I already cooked. I used brown rice, so I know that I'm getting lots of delicious fiber. There's peas in here. All of those things. Point you guys down. So there we go. We have a nice bed of rice. There we go. And we have a delicious saucy stir fry that was super easy to make, super tasty. Yum, with lots of delicious beef, full of iron, protein, vitamin B12, and tons of veggies as well. A delicious sauce. Everything to enjoy. Thank you so much for cooking along with me. I'm just going to take a bite here because this looks amazing. Make sure you get a veggie in there. So good. I'm really excited to eat this for my lunch, and I hope you guys all enjoyed. And yeah, I'll see you guys again soon. Thanks for being here with me today. Bye.